So, on June 15, I was banned from Wynncraft for using illegal macros when I don't. Now, disclaimer, I was unbanned after 17 days on July 1st, and the gameplay footage in the background was recorded after my unban. Anyway, for those of you who don't understand what multicast looping macros are, the word macro in gaming essentially refers to programming inputs on your keyboard or mouse to perform a series of commands or actions. At the time this video is uploaded, it is legal to use two kinds of macros in Wynncraft. The first is a single input macro that performs 3 mouse clicks in order to cast a spell. Basically, you press one key to cast one spell. The second is a macro that continuously performs left click or right click repeatedly while holding down a button. This is mainly used for builds that constantly spam main attacks. So, looking back at the ban reason, the moderation team banned me on the belief that I use macros that cast multiple spells on one button press, with looping technology that continues to repeat that spellcasting sequence automatically. When you are banned from Wynncraft, you are supposed to go on the forums to the ban appeal section and submit an appeal. However, the ban appeal process starts with a prompt that asks for your username, and then brings you to a short questionnaire which automatically assumes you are guilty and doesn't have any actual information regarding the details of the ban. Now, this ban appeal system is pretty terrible, but it functions fine assuming every person who was banned is guilty, because the moderation team is simply looking for an admission of guilt. I knew I could get unbanned pretty easily if I just apologized, as they unban first-time offenders, but I did not want to apologize for something I didn't do, and decided to create an appeal for my innocence. My first issue came pretty quickly though, because I realized that I don't actually know what I'm defending myself for, given that there is no present evidence or justification for my ban. So, using my deduction skills from my 1000 Games of Town of Salem experience, I had to generate a justification for the moderation team to ban me, based off of the information that I had. I logged off on Friday, June 14, and tried logging back on Wynncraft on Saturday, June 15, so I knew I was banned during this time frame. I was playing the Nameless Anomaly on Thursday evening and Friday as part of my normal activity, but what is notable is that I only raided on Riftwalker Singularity. Riftwalker Manastorm Mage is a high CPS playstyle that cycles Meteor Ice Snake at 10 CPS. Most people play this using spell macros, so I figured it is likely that the moderation team saw me playing Riftwalker Singularity and thought I was using illegal macros. Unfortunately, I wasn't recording my gameplay on those days since I only record when I want to upload something to YouTube. I also remember playing with another Riftwalker mage on that Friday in one of the parties, so if the moderation team were watching me, they would have also seen that other player, and perhaps they would have banned him as well. So I checked the Wynncraft stats page to see if he logged on after I was banned, and he did, meaning he wasn't banned. This meant that the ban had something to do with my playstyle or behavior. Now, I have only ever played one Riftwalker build. It is this specific Singularity build that has the special property of being a slow hybrid build. I personally find slow attack speed to be very comfortable because you can cast Meteor Ice Snake at 9 CPS and interweave a main attack every 2 spells. I spam left click after casting meteors to get the main attack in. Now, I point this out because this can be perceived as very difficult to do. You can't use macros which perform meteor and main attack, as this would be 4 clicks and thus illegal. So I figured that the moderation team probably used my consistency at interweaving slow attack speed main attacks in my spellcasting as a potential indication for illegal macros. Now, this on its own would definitely not be enough to ban me, and it also did not explain why the moderation team was watching me in the first place. My best guess was that I either false flagged some sort of automated server moderation system, or that someone I was raiding with reported me due to my habit of continuously spellcasting in the buff rooms, which don't have any combat. Now, if you're an experienced Nameless Anomaly runner, watching Riftwalker mages continue to spell spam in buff rooms is pretty average behavior due to the need to maintain Mana Storm, but to an inexperienced eye, and especially to those who don't play mage, I figured that continuing to spell spam in rooms without combat can appear as usage of looping macros, I guess. I came to this conclusion because I raided with a person who I suspected was likely to report me, and I ended up being right. Now, I didn't think while we were raiding that this person would report me, but after I saw that I was banned, this player out of all the people I played with on Friday made the most sense to me. Anyway, with all of this detective work done, I created and submitted my ban appeal on the basis that the moderation team banned me due to my Riftwalker Singularity gameplay on June 14, which had the incorporation of slow attack speed main attacks, as well as continuous spell spamming in places without combat. To prove I wasn't macroing, I created a Google document a little longer than 4 pages, plus an additional 4 pages of additional reading, and 5 pages of additional soft evidence I don't macro. Now, I did go a little all out, and I did probably do a lot more work than I needed to do, but understand I have no idea what to expect from the moderation team. In the appeal, I performed 9 CPS tests, each of them being 1 minute long, and I performed 3 different high CPS spell cycles. I also had my Minecraft logs from the relevant days, showing that I only used the vanilla Minecraft launcher and only have Optifine. Now, I only installed Lunar Client after I was banned per recommendation by a real-life friend, which is why the gameplay in the background has Lunar Client. I submitted my ban appeal on June 18 and got a response 4 days after on June 22. The response had a question phrased, "In the above screenshot and video from your Google document, you had mentioned that you interweave slow attack main attacks with a relatively consistent timing of 0.67 seconds between your spells. Could you clarify please to why you proceed to also do so in instances where there is no active combat situations and within towns and cities?" Now, I thought this question was pretty strange because there seems to be an emphasis on main attacks. Seemingly, the moderator's point is that using main attacks outside of combat situations is useless, since main attacks don't contribute to maintaining Mana Storm, as they're not spells, and won't provide lifesteal and Mana Steal without hitting mobs. But as I stated, main attacks are part of the spell cycle I do, so naturally it would be pointless and harder for me as a manual caster to practice Ice Snake Meteor without main attacks. The question was essentially a weirder way of asking, why do you continue to spell spam in areas without combat, such as in towns and in cities? And the simple answer is, I like to practice the spell cycle sometimes, during downtime between raids or just out of boredom. I mean, I don't practice Wynncraft spell cycles when I'm not playing Wynncraft. Spell spamming in buff rooms or towns is similar to spell spamming against combat dummies in housing. I mean, there's no real combat in housing either. The only practical difference on builds that don't rely on Mana Steal is that the housing dummy shows you your DPS, which I already know as I also sometimes practice against the dummy. The response also included 2 unlisted YouTube videos, which served as the moderation team's primary evidences against me. Now, I don't want to reveal the identities of the people involved in my ban, so I can't share these videos, but instead I've loosely replicated them using Replay Mod. The first video was recorded in the second buff room of the Nameless Anomaly raid, and it shows me waiting at the door, spell spamming Meteor main attack Ice Snake into the wall for about 20 seconds. It was recorded in third person, so imagine the player recording is just standing here by the middle buff platform. The footage was cropped so that I couldn't see the scoreboard on the right side or the chat box on the left, evidently to hide the identity of the person recording the video. But I recognized the skin anyway, confirming my suspicions earlier on the player who I thought reported me. I made sure to double check on name MC and found that this person had changed their skin to something else, but their second most recent skin matched the skin in the recording. There isn't much else to say about this footage since the perspective is bad and you can only see my meteors. I simply put in my second response that I am practicing the spell cycle and maintaining Mana Storm for the upcoming combat room. The second video was recorded after the end of a Nameless Anomaly raid completion. It starts with me teleporting back to Lutho and then continuously spell spamming Meteor main attack Ice Snake for about 1.5 minutes. The person recording the second video was creative mode flying, so it was evidently recorded by a moderator. 2 other moderators are visible in the footage, with one of them being the moderator who banned me. The chat box was blurred, so I couldn't see if they had any server moderation systems being flagged by me. Now, there are quite a few indicators in this footage that show I manually spellcast, and without this footage, the appeal process would have likely taken much longer. For starters, I occasionally slow down and then speed up the rate at which I cast Meteor main attack Ice Snake, which looping macros cannot easily do. I mean, this would essentially require your macro to have the functionality to slow down and then speed up the rate at which it performs clicks, which is pretty pointless for most intents and purposes. I also miscast occasionally, and I am inconsistent in how I miscast. I ended up making a list compiling all of my miscasts and slowdowns, and while I cannot share the actual footage which matches the list, given that I am unbanned, I'm sure you can see the moderation team seems to agree with my assessment of the footage. You can also use the length of my ice snakes to determine if I am using illegal macros or not. See, Ice Snake has a travel speed, and it is not stackable, meaning if you cast an Ice Snake while one is still traveling, it will cancel the previous. Ice Snake does not travel its full length when casting Meteor Ice Snake at high CPS, so for a manual or legal macros player, the length of Ice Snakes will generally fluctuate. For a looping macros player, you would expect the length of Ice Snakes to be the exact same, since the spell cycle is being looped with the amount of time per click and spells being the exact same every time. Now, there is a major ID called Flash Freeze, which makes Ice Snake travel instantaneously, but my build does not have this major ID. I sent my second response on June 23 and had to wait 8 days for the next response from the moderation team. The response was short this time, simply saying that I was unbanned and that they apologized for the inconvenience. The ban was strikeless, meaning that if I were banned again for a real reason, that would be my first time offense. Frankly, I think it would have been a lot easier for people if after answering the prompt for your username, it would show you the time you were banned, why you were banned, and the evidence for your ban. Then there could be a prompt which first asks if you're admitting guilt or appealing for innocence, which would then bring down the corresponding questionnaires depending on what you answer. It could also be nice if there were places to upload files easily, but this isn't necessary. I understand this asks for more work from moderators, but I do think this would make it much easier and more inviting for innocent people to plead innocent, as the current system basically incentivizes everyone to admit to guilt. As for the people and moderators involved in my ban, there was some speculation that this was a purposeful ban. Now, I know the identities of the 3 moderators in the Lutho footage, and frankly, I don't really know these people, and I definitely don't think they know me. So I don't think there's any vendetta here. Now, do I think the moderation team had reason to ban me? No, I do not. Mainly for the reason that no AFK tests were performed on me, and so they never had solid evidence for looping macros. I learned from people that a typical way for moderators to test for looping macros is to teleport the player and see if they continue to spellcast but don't react. This means that they are AFK and are using looping macros. No kind of AFK test was performed on me. I didn't state this earlier, but I made sure in my appeal and second response to ask the moderation team for all their hard and soft evidence against me. And at the end, there was no actual hard number evidence documented from the server, only video footage, which actually proved my innocence. It is particularly disappointing, given that the 3 moderators seen in the Lutho footage have leveled up endgame mages. Now, I don't know if any of them have ever played Riftwalker Mana Storm Mage, but they should at least know about Ice Snake lengths and how that can be used to determine whether someone is using legal macros or not. That being said, I don't hold any personal grudge to the moderators, and I understand that mistakes happen every so often. Now, do I think that the person who reported me was justified? So to get some details clear without revealing their identity, this person does not play mage at endgame. I'm not going to specify if they have leveled up mages or not. But I would reason that they do not know mage spell cycles and thus cannot tell whenever I miscast. They also do not raid the Nameless Anomaly very often and thus do not know that it is fairly common behavior to watch Riftwalker Mana Storm mages continue the spell spam in buff rooms. However, this person is also a very well-known and very well-respected player. I mean, even I have massive respect for this person, but I now know to respect them from a far distance. I point this out because it is pretty safe for me to assume that the moderation team are far more likely to take a report from this player as true. That being said, I think that this person was within reason to report me given what they saw and what they know. But yeah, that is the end of this story. My ban essentially shows that the moderation team is willing to ban people for illegal macros based off of behavior, with no proper tests or checks. So if you are running a high CPS build, I would recommend recording your gameplay and making sure not to spellcast for long periods of time in places without combat. It's not fun dealing with the ban appeal process currently, and response times completely depend on the moderator who banned you. I got reasonably lucky, but I know some people who have had ban appeal processes that took literal months. I do apologize for taking so long with this video. I mean, it's been a month since I was unbanned, and a month and a half since I was banned. I'll be honest, I wasn't really motivated to make this, as the ban really made me lose a lot of interest in Wynncraft in general. I mean, I am interested in the 2.1 Rekindled World update, but that isn't finalized and here yet, and I haven't really felt like playing the hero beta. I didn't ask for it, but I would have appreciated compensation for the time that was wasted from me. This was my first time trying to edit a video for YouTube, so please let me know how I did and how I can improve. With that being said, thanks for watching.